we can hide away. We can hide ourselves, hide our beliefs, hide the things we're learning from people that we feel like won't understand. Why is that? What it's been for me a lot is I'm afraid they'll think I'm batshit crazy. What is this light language that she's speaking? What is she talking about? Touch the trees. What is she talking about? She goes out into the woods and walks barefoot on the trails. God forbid. We're not meant to be like everybody else. We are not meant to be like everybody else. I lived that life of trying to be like everyone else. I got breast implants at age 21 like everybody else. I wore makeup and dyed my hair like everybody else. Welcome to Embodying You, a podcast of spiritual exploration where nothing is off limits. You'll hear raw, behind the scenes stories from people awakening to their soul's path and how they became the healers, mystics, and intuitives they are today. You'll also experience real-time intuitive sessions and healings where struggles transform into breakthroughs that you can bring into your own life. Along the way, you just might recognize yourself in the stories shared. This is Embodying You. Welcome to the first episode of Embodying You. If you don't know it, I have a podcast that I recorded 3 episodes on called Embodying Wholeness, which is the name of my company. But after 3 episodes, I started feeling this stall and like I needed to stop. Something needed to integrate, and a lot integrated. I'll just say that. But if something about this episode piques your interest and you don't want to wait for the next episode, you can go to Embodying Wholeness and I will put it in the show links. So today, as my intro episode to Who the Hell is Tiffany Hart, what I really wanted to talk about is the ways that when we are getting into this spiritual world, and a part of me says, can we even really call it that, right? Because my best friend is Christian, very Christian, goes to church, reads the Bible. She considers herself spiritual. So maybe I will call it, and I kind of don't like this word, but woo, right? The woo side of things. It's been kind of overplayed, but in just 1 or 2 words, whether you want to say woo or woo woo, you know what I'm talking about. And it's how when we start to get into this world, we can hide away. We can hide ourselves, hide our beliefs, hide the things we're learning from people that we feel like won't understand. Why is that? What it's been for me a lot is I'm afraid they'll think I'm batshit crazy. Like, what the hell is she talking about? Like, what is this light language that she's speaking? What is she talking about? Touch the trees. You know, what is she talking about? She goes out into the woods and she takes her shoes off and walks barefoot on the trails. God forbid, right? Because we've just been so disconnected from earth, from our true selves, from, well, all of the things that honestly we have been taught are crazy in movies, in articles. I mean, you name it. And yet we come into this world, and as we start having our own physical experiences with it, our own bodily experiences with it, what happens is once we have our own experience with it, we understand. And once you have that experience within your body, it can't be someone else telling you. It can, maybe, but unless you experience it, it's just not the same. And when that happens, and again, we emotionally experience it, we have a moment of change, a moment of relief, a moment of release with this work, we then understand. And so I guess as I'm really getting to a point where I'm ready to show all the things that I do online, knowing that there are people in my life who don't understand. There are people in my life who, you know, have already questioned things here and there. But then once we talk, they get it. There's even my stepdad and my stepmom. Well, it's my stepdad, but it's the woman he's married to. And so he was having issues with his knee and was needing knee surgery. And before he went in for his knee surgery, I told him, I said, hey, you know, if you want, I can do some work so that you heal faster. You know, just let me know. No big deal. And he'd never had work by me before. And after his surgery, I think it was probably 3 or 4 days after his surgery, he was still in so much pain. And when he went back to the doctor, they said, you shouldn't still be in this much pain. And he wasn't getting any sleep. So he calls me, right? He calls me. And in our first session, I always call in God, like the one true creator. Because if you don't know it, that can be intercepted if we're just putting it out to God, but we're not clear about who it is. Who knows what we're going to get? And that's the truth of it. That's not to scare anybody. It's just a little like piece of information that I'm dropping in here that we can talk about more in depth another time. But so I called in God, right? The one true creator of us all, of the earth, of everything. And he's Catholic. And so it felt very important for me to call in the saints. And then I call in any angels that are there to help, archangels or any other angels that are there to help. So only light beings. And when I got on the call with him, intuitively, I knew it was very important that I tell them, I want you to know that I've called in the help of God. I've called in any saints that are here to help. I've called in your angels. And at the end of that session, his wife said to me, I had no idea, like, kind of what this was or who you worked with. I didn't know, but it really meant a lot to me that you were connecting with God, that you do this work through God. And I just got chills, chills through my legs from that. And that's the thing I think happens a lot, is there is a misconception about what energy work is. If someone does energy work, there's a misconception about intuition, right? Intuition is thought to be superfluous. Oh, it really doesn't matter. Even though people say things like trust your gut. Have you all ever thought about that? Mm-hmm. I mean, we've grown up hearing trust your gut. But then if someone goes along and they try to trust their gut, someone's like, did you make a pros and cons list? Did you really think this through? Did you really logic your way and like bend it all around? And this is how I used to live. I made pros and cons lists. I would sit and loop and loop and loop and loop on something. But the freedom came when I decided to play with intuition. And I decided instead to, I don't know, ask for 3 yellow butterflies if I was really meant to go to a concert, right? I mean, that's just what came to me. This really, really cool concert came on. It was basically 2 artists that I was obsessed with and listening to all the time at that time. So Casey Musgraves, who had been full on country, but had put out a new album that was, I guess, not totally being embraced by the country genre. And then King Princess. And I had just found King Princess maybe 3 or 4 months before and was just obsessed with some of her songs. 1950 is an amazing one if this resonates with anyone. But when I heard that those 2 people were coming in concert together, Casey Musgraves with King Princess opening up, completely different genres. And again, 2 people who I'd been obsessed with over that summer, I said, okay, all right, let's check this out. As someone who would only go to concerts if they were maybe $30 for a ticket, 60 was pushing it. 60 was like, what the fuck are you talking about? $60 for one night for a concert. I mean, I'm going to like it, but somebody else pay for it, please. I'm not paying for it. And that's the only way I would go to concerts. So this one, when I looked it up, was $250 for a ticket. And so I just said, all right. If you want me to go, show me 3 yellow butterflies. So just a few days later, I'm at the park with my kids, and my daughter insists on showing me one of those trays that has all of the bugs pinned with all of the labels on them and everything like that. We've been there before. We've seen the trays before, but for some reason she was very insistent that I come over. And when I went over, I noticed all the butterflies and I thought, oh my gosh, are there 3? And I looked, and there were exactly 3 butterflies in with all the butterflies. And that's when I knew. And so what I want to say about this is I didn't start off making a $250 decision with intuition. That wasn't how I started. right? I first learned about it from a friend who said, hey, I've been listening to, I think it was Abraham Hicks. I've been listening to Abraham Hicks, and I decided to play with getting signs for things. And she was telling me about how she was playing around and she asked for a unicorn. And then she started telling me about the crazy ways she was getting unicorns, including a giant unicorn in the middle of an aisle, a stuffed unicorn that wasn't supposed to be there, but it was just in the middle of this aisle, right in her way. And I thought, well, that sounds fun. I want that. I want that. That's never happened to me. And that was actually my first time to play. So I said, all right, I'll play. I decided to ask for roosters. So the next day, I go to my aunt's house to drop my daughter off. And at the top of the kitchen, you know how some people decorate the top of their kitchen cabinets with stuff? Well, she's had stuff up there for who knows how many years. I mean, seriously. I mean, it's probably been there since they moved in. And only that morning did I notice that there was a rooster up there. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, it worked. Then right away, logic came in and said, but subconsciously you knew that rooster was there because you've been here how many times? I'm like, all right, yeah, that's totally true. I probably did know it was there. So I think it was later that day, could have been a day or two later. I don't know, but it was in it didn't take very long. That's what I'm trying to say is I was on my way to my therapist's office and I went a different way than I normally went. And I went by this antique shop that had this giant metal rooster. I mean, this rooster is probably 7 or 8 foot tall in front of it. And that's when I knew, oh. And that's also for me, one of the defining moments. I can feel the tears coming. One of the defining moments for me that I fucking mattered. Like I just want to pause with that. The fact that something was giving me signs that I was important enough to be given a fucking sign. Are you fucking kidding me? And this was probably 5 years ago, maybe 6. I don't know. Chronology for me, we're not the best of friends. But I really, really want anyone who's listening, anyone who's watching to hear this. If you are someone who wonders if you even fucking matter in the world, number one, you do. You do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. We've just been disconnected from our own importance. And this happened from the moment that we were children. People did not necessarily mean to, right? Like say in some of the ways that even our parents may, because of their own feelings of insecurity, put their insecurities on us. And we didn't realize it, up until 7, right? We're just sponges. We're just trying to fit into the tribe that we're in, to the community, to the family that we're in. And so in that stage, we're in that hypnotic stage and we're just taking in information, we're modeling and we're seeing what everybody around us is doing, what society is doing, what the movies are telling us to do, what the news is telling us to do. And for me, Entertainment Tonight, I mean, I bet you Entertainment Tonight played every night in my house. So Entertainment Tonight was busy telling me how I needed to look. Pardon. How I needed to dress, that fever blisters were not okay, that gray hair was not okay, that having cellulite wasn't okay, having fat wasn't okay. I mean, all the things. So it comes at us from everywhere, even from super well-meaning people, right? The ones who tell us to, well, let's just say if we go over to a friend's house, like, be good, do exactly what they say. Well, yeah, I say something similar to my daughter if I'm being honest, but also, what are their parents telling them to do based on their own issues and their own things? I feel like potentially I went off on a tangent, but I'm going to trust it was all just meant to be here. But so let me see, let me tune into where I'm meant to go, because so the way my intuition works, and if you are someone who's playing with your intuition, pay attention to this. When I get something and then it's taken away, the thought is it's almost like it vanishes, or maybe there's a little piece of it. I know now that it wasn't meant to be said. It was something meant for maybe just me. And then it gets pulled back a little bit. And so that's what just happened. So I just trust it was meant to end there. And let me tune into what wants to be said next. Ooh. Okay, let's really get back to the batshit crazy stuff. Okay. So I remember years ago when I was following this really hot guy who did yoga online. And I loved seeing his stuff because, again, he was really hot. And I was single. And even though he lived somewhere else and probably had a girlfriend or whatever, I was looking for a spiritual man, right? I was looking for a man who did the inner work. I was wanting that expansion, that was even possible, because I didn't really know that was for sure possible. The man in particular that does the inner work, right? So I'm following this guy and he has this post. I should try to go back and find it and share it. But he has this post where he has this giant, what I now realize is an amethyst, those purple crystals. And he was talking about this crystal and how much he loved this crystal, that he would carry it around the house with him throughout the day and have it in the room with him, that he would go to sleep with it and all these things. And I remember thinking, what the fuck? Like, I do think that's probably what went through my head. And I remember even messaging my friend who introduced me to his page and saying, I don't know, this is really weird. This is really weird. Yet something inside of me said, yep, that's right. Yep, this makes sense. And so it was just a seed that was planted. So from that, I was shopping for Christmas and we were in this little area with all these igloos, those pop-up stands. I don't know if you've all ever been to the pop-up stands, but they're so cute. They look like little igloos and they just put a whole store, all these little boutique stores inside of them, or boutique, depending on where you're from in the country. But I remember that there was this little area where they had crystals and I thought, all right, well, I'm going to try it out. So I picked up the crystals in my hand and I just closed my eyes for a second and just to see if I could tune in with them. And I felt them. And I felt them. And I remember thinking, what? Then fast forward, right? Because again, it's all a progression. That's really what's wanting to come through for everybody, is remember that it's a progression. Okay. So fast forward to being at my ex-husband's family's house. And they have a dog, and I cannot remember what was happening with her paw, but something was happening where they were needing to clip a nail or something like that. And 2 or 3 people were down on the ground trying to kind of hold her in place because she was freaking out. And even someone there said, she doesn't normally do this. And I thought, let me try it. So nobody knew. I tuned into her and I felt it the moment that I did. And I said, hey, they just need to clip this thing real quick and then they'll be done. Like, that's it. She calmed down immediately. They were able to do what they needed to do. And that was it. And someone even commented on, wow, she calmed down really quickly. But only later when we were going to bed, did I tell my husband at that time, guess what? And so it was this really cool moment, and then from there, it was just progressions. And so sometimes when we get further in our journey with our intuition and with tuning into things or whatever it is we're saying, or me speaking light language or any of the things that definitely seem weird, right? If I were to tell most people, yeah, I tuned into this dog and it calmed down right away, they would go into all of the reasons why that isn't true, right? Like, well, that doesn't make logical sense or whatever it is. But I knew it. I felt it, right? And I was there for it also. And so let's see, where are we going next? What today felt like when I tuned into it for the collective was a collection of stories, basically. So let's see. The next one is light language. Ooh, because that one is probably the weirdest thing I do. Even when I am speaking light language to myself, I still have this part of me that is in the background going, this is really weird. This is really weird. And I know at some point I will clear that energy, right? Because that's just a subconscious belief. It's just a root belief, but I guess I just haven't bothered with clearing it yet. But even right before this, when I was getting myself prepared for this podcast episode, what came up intuitively is what I should say, was for me to speak light language. And when I did, I was just observing the thought in the back of my mind going, is this real? This is really weird. Who are you really channeling? And so I would like to tell you my progression with light language. So here, for those of you who have not heard it, here is an example of light language. It ends up, who knew? I speak many different types of light language. So we'll see what comes through right now. But here's what I will say. You can have people that don't know it and connect with beings that are dark energies and light beings. So I don't know if this is the correct term, but I personally call it more of like a what some people would consider tongues. Because you know how they'll see people in church and they have this image of, oh, these people are crazy, they're all speaking in tongues kind of thing. So it's really just, there is something that you feel from the person when they are speaking from dark energies that feels a little bit off, but the intention is what matters. And so I only channel light language, right? Like light beings. And even with that, I still have fear that comes up, even though I know. And so here's a little bit of light language. And so part of what that was saying is, part of what I'm receiving is that it was just a reminder to those who chose to listen that our souls are ready to be opened up. Our souls are ready for something different, something new. There's a reason why so many people woke up in 2020 when shit was hitting the fan. And there's a reason why so many people are still having these awakenings and coming back into themselves. The truth is how I consider it. And so light language feels like my truth. It feels like my truth, but it did not always start that way. For one thing, in the past, anytime I would hear someone speaking something like that, whatever you want to call it, I would have those same reactions of like, okay, all right, what? But then again, further along in my journey, when I had been learning about these things, when I had been playing with intuition and playing with just, I don't know, tapping into my guides, tapping into higher self, playing with signs and synchronicities, just all of those things, what ended up happening is within that time, I meet someone and all of a sudden she's learned to speak light language. And she decides to share it with us. And when she shared it with us, I remember I felt elated. I was giggling while I was listening to it because I thought it sounded so strange, but yet I felt so good. I mean, I felt so good. And yet I felt it was so weird. And I had the same feeling with that I did with the guy carrying his crystal all around the house. I thought, I want to do that. It took many months for me to do that. And there was actually an activation that happened. That's probably a podcast for another day because it's a really interesting story. In fact, I should have him on because I activated something in someone else and then he activated light language within me. And it was like a crazy synchronicity where I literally woke up in the middle of the night and felt this whoosh of bright light come in. And then I heard, and now you can speak light language. And that was it. And then I went back to bed. And so again, that's a story for another time, but he was a part of it. And that was part of our soul contract, our continuing soul contract. So with light language, speaking it out loud in front of people, That was really strange. And I still don't do it a lot, right? Because people don't understand. And I'm not about like just trying to be weird to be weird. Like, I mean, I actually enjoy being weird because I enjoy being myself. I enjoy not fitting into anybody else's box. But, you know, it's one of the weirder things, like I said, even to me. And so I remember the first time, it's probably about 2 years ago, that I realized I was hiding that part of myself, even though I was really learning a lot about light language and it was very meaningful to me. I was hiding that part of myself online and in my stories. And so I did a post about it where I was just speaking vulnerably. And then at the very end of it, okay, it was probably 6 minutes long. At the very end of it, I speak light language to like show them what I'm talking about. Well, my son's father's former boss apparently watched the whole thing, saw that part, messaged my son's father asking if he was safe with me. All right. So what I think I want to say about that is there can be the very real fear within us as we're on our journey that maybe we're making it up, or maybe we're crazy. But that's, of course, there's a potential, right, that some people are genuinely mentally unstable, right? I'm not saying that. But those of you, like we know on the spiritual journey, there are things that we just feel like we can't say to people because we feel like they won't understand or we feel like they won't judge us. Well, one of the things that I want to say is throughout my journey, what I have been doing is when I find myself judging myself for those things, as I root and ground into those things more and more, I worry less and less about what other people think. So truly, it's how I feel about what I am doing that then gives me that perceived judgment, right? Otherwise, I would just share openly all the time. Because really, that's what I want. That's what my soul desires. My soul desires to not cover anything up. To not cover anything up. None of the hardships I've been through. I mean, and I've been through a lot. There was sexual abuse when I was a little girl. There's been addiction in my life with people in my life from the time that I was a child up until being an adult too. And I've been married twice and divorced twice. And just to say that out loud, I used to hide that too. And even right now, as I'm saying that out loud, there's still a part of me that wants to say, oh, well, I was with the first one for this long though. And then the second one for this long. But really, that doesn't matter. Who told us that it's not okay to be married multiple times, right? Like who told us that marriage has to be this all of your lifetime thing for every single person that gets married? And I just don't believe that. And so one of the things that really helped me with that is learning my human design. And then I actually did a podcast with Emma Dunwoody. And if you don't know her, she's amazing to learn human design from because she does not teach putting yourself in a box at all. But I did a podcast with her about the line 3. And we talked specifically about my 2 marriages. And I remember I didn't know, I thought we were just talking about trial and error for the line 3 in human design. Nope, she wanted to talk about my 2 marriages and 2 divorces because it's such a line 3 thing to do. To she calls it making and breaking bonds. And now granted, you don't have to be line 3 to be married and divorced multiple times, so that's not what I'm saying. But even just that little piece of knowledge that the line 3 is here to make and break bonds, that we may have really, really good friends when we're living over here, but then we move and all of a sudden we just like don't keep in contact. But yet I know people like probably some of my line 4 people who will stay in contact with people forever, right? So it's just about accepting yourself, learning yourself, trusting yourself that what is coming through you is the truth because it's your truth. We're not meant to be like everybody else. We are not meant to be like everybody else. And that is something that I don't know, maybe I should get a big banner, have it across my website or my forehead, or have it off my car. Like, what if I was riding down the highway or something and I had a flag that said, you're not meant to be like everybody else. But truly, because I lived that life. I lived that life of trying to be like everyone else. I got breast implants at age 21 like everybody else. I wore makeup and dyed my hair like everybody else. I Well, my last marriage, he was what people considered very successful. You know, he was an attorney, he was in politics also, and people knew of him in the state if they were in this area of the political field, is what I'll say, or this area of law. People knew of him. And I had a lot of pride in that of, oh, I'm the wife of. And there was a lot of caring about what other people thought about me. What do other people think about me? What should I wear? I don't know. I don't know if I should wear that because that person may think something about me. And so, really, it's funny. I guess what this episode is turning into is intuition and the things that we feel make us look batshit crazy. They're exactly the things that will lead us back to ourselves. All of our journeys are different. Some of you may never hear of light language again after this, right? Some of you may never play with signs and synchronicities. Everybody's path is different. But what I would encourage is follow every single step that you can. When something comes up for you to do and you have a feeling you should do it, and then your mind comes in and tells you no, just do your best to tell the mind, like, thank you, or you can call it ego, whatever. Like, I know you're trying to keep me safe, but no thanks. Because since I stopped listening to the mind, all sorts of things have opened up in my life. All sorts of things have opened up in my life. And this is here and available to anybody, and to everyone. We are all intuitive. We are all intuitive. We're just disconnected from it. And so one of the last things that I will say is one of the reasons why I believe I have become so intuitive is because of all of the layers that I have peeled away. So there is very much this part of life where we have to take the physical action, right? We have to do the physical things. But usually we've not been taught to energetically release, to release emotions as we go, to release trauma, right? And again, I would say we've been purposely disconnected from our bodies and from even knowing that we have the power to release these traumas from ourselves, to release these emotions from ourselves. I have done multiple sessions on myself of removing whole belief systems from the root, and then all the branches, all the things that have been covering up my intuition. And I know I still have more to go, but through doing that, through whether it's through dance or singing or any number of ways that you might know or learn to release trauma from the body, know that as you do that, your intuition will come online more and more as you go. I fully believe that our intuition will only get stronger as we remove the dense energies from our body, because that's what the trapped emotions are. It's what the trapped beliefs that are lower vibration. It's what they do. And so when we're vibrating at our highest frequency, I mean, if like those of you listening, if you feel like you're intuitive now, can you imagine 6 months from now, a year from now, how much more in tune with yourself and your intuition you'll be? I mean, really. And you already know how to do it. You just haven't been told that you know how, or you haven't been taught, unless you have specifically found your way of releasing energy. And I would say too, there are multiple ways. Sometimes there are little bitty ones, like little bitty things that maybe you're releasing 1 or 2 or 3 emotions, but then sometimes you're releasing something big. I mean, I remember this one time I was in the bathtub and I knew I was meant to release. My boyfriend and I had just broken up. And we'd only been dating for three months, but I'd already gotten into my Akashic records and I already knew the importance of the relationship. But when intuition came in because of something that happened and said, no, you need to go ahead and end this, I just trusted it. And this is a whole longer story, but this one part that I'll say is that evening, I knew I needed to release in the bathtub. That was what was coming to me intuitively. So I got in the bathtub and I felt that I needed to cry. And for a split second, this old thought of, but you all have only been dating for 3 months came in, right? But that's another thing. I've had past lives with this man, right? And we have our soul contract in this lifetime. So yeah, I allowed myself to grieve. I would not have in the past, but when I was in the bathtub and I felt like I needed to cry, I started crying. And I started crying so hard. It felt awful for a moment. I remember saying, I can't do this. I can't. And I heard, yes, you can. And so then I just asked for help. I said, okay, then help me. And I didn't feel it like they were touching me, but I just kind of felt this presence around me. And all of a sudden I could release. And through a couple of other ways, I also released that evening. That was on a Friday night. By Monday, it felt like we'd been broken up for months. And again, this was a very special and important relationship. So I just want to say it is so important that we release all of the programming that's put upon us and all of, like, we can never get rid of all the trauma, maybe, right? I mean, honestly, there's no sense in trying. It's just as things come up, oh, I'm going to release that. Oh, okay, that's come up. I'm going to release it. Oh, I forgot to release that thing that was bothering me. That's okay. Let's just move on, right? There's no keeping a list, keeping tabs of, oh, I didn't do it here. I didn't do it here. But it's just find your way or ways, because I personally have multiple ways of shedding the you that's not actually you, right? The things that are actually other people's thoughts, other people's beliefs, and even inherited emotions and inherited beliefs, because we can have that. And I do sessions, I do energetic sessions. So if this is calling to someone and you want to do a session, you'll know for the most part exactly what we're removing. And that actually has been so powerful in my journey, because in knowing initially what I was removing, meaning exactly what emotions I was removing or exactly what beliefs I was removing, or if it was causing an imbalance in my body, and I could see the exact imbalance through the modality that I use, what it did is it actually helped me in my everyday life when I'm just driving down the street in the car to not say, oh, I need to pull out my app so I can look at the list of emotions and muscle tests, right? No, it was just, oh, okay, I feel something coming up. All right, I need to release. Yes. Okay, here we go. And now I can release wherever I am, whoever I'm in front of. I can be talking to someone, and if I'm triggered, I can be like, oh, I need to release that right now while they're talking to me. So that's where, that's where the conversation is ending. I'm just tuning in here, is just to embrace the weird, embrace the crazy. And as long as it feels like you and it feels safe, I would say just trust it and know that with every step that you take, even if it may not make sense, logical sense, you are getting back to the real you, the you who you came here to be. If this episode spoke to you, please subscribe and leave a review so others can find this show too. Your support helps this community grow and brings more voices into the conversation. Plus, I would love to hear your biggest takeaway. Thank you so much.